I trusted my husband Cole completely, and my best friend Philomena, she was like a sister to me, until I found those photos on his phone from his business trip to Denver. What I discovered shattered everything I believed about the two people closest to me. But what I did at Philomena's wedding 3 weeks later, that made everyone in that church gasp in shock.
Hold on just a moment. Drop a comment letting us know what part of the world you're watching from. And if this tale has captured your attention, hit that subscribe button now, because what I have lined up for tomorrow's episode will absolutely blow your mind.
I never thought I'd be the woman who checks her husband's phone. That wasn't who Cole Carrington and I were supposed to be. We were the couple everyone envied. Married for 6 years, still laughing at each other's jokes, still holding hands in public. Cole's construction consulting business was thriving, taking him to different cities every month, and I was proud of how hard he worked for our future. But there were moments, small ones, where something felt off. Like when my best friend Philomena Harold would get this strange look whenever Cole's name came up in conversation, or when Cole would quickly flip his phone face down when I walked into the room. I'd told myself I was being paranoid. Philomena and I had been inseparable since college. She was the maid of honor at my wedding, the first person I called with good news, the shoulder I cried on when my mother passed away 2 years ago. She was planning her own wedding to Ander Meister, her fiancé of 8 months, and I was supposed to be her maid of honor. We spent hours together picking out flowers, tasting cakes, debating between ivory and champagne for the bridesmaids' dresses. "You're so lucky to have figured it all out already," she'd say, watching Cole and me at dinner parties. "Marriage looks so easy when you two do it." I believed her admiration was genuine. I believed a lot of things back then. Cole's business trips had become more frequent lately. Chicago for the Morrison Project, Atlanta for the new shopping center, Denver for the luxury hotel consultation. Each trip lasted 3 to 4 days, and he'd come home exhausted but excited, telling me about architectural challenges and client meetings over dinner. "The Denver project is huge, Elle," he'd say last month, using the nickname only he was allowed to call me. "If we land this contract, we can finally start thinking about that house in Maplewood you've been wanting." I kissed him and told him how proud I was, how lucky I felt to have a husband who worked so hard for our dreams. The night he left for Denver, Philomena came over with wedding magazines and a bottle of wine. We spread everything across the living room floor, venue photos, dress designs, menu options. She was getting married in 3 weeks, and the excitement was infectious. "I can't believe it's finally happening," she said, holding up a photo of her dress. "Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering if I deserve to be this happy." "Of course you do," I assured her. "Ander adores you. You two are perfect together." She smiled, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite read. What if you found out something about someone you loved? Something that changed everything? I thought she was talking about pre-wedding jitters. "Are you worried about Ander?" "No. I mean, hypothetically, if you discovered someone you trusted was living a double life, would you want to know, even if it destroyed everything?" The question seemed oddly specific, but I was focused on helping her through what I assumed was normal wedding anxiety. "I'd want to know," I said without hesitation. "The truth might hurt, but lies hurt worse. They're like poison. They corrupt everything, even the good memories." Philomena nodded slowly, staring at her engagement ring. "Yeah, I think you're right." We spent the rest of the evening planning her bachelorette party and discussing honeymoon destinations. She seemed distracted, checking her phone more than usual, but I attributed it to wedding stress. When she left around midnight, she hugged me longer than normal. "I love you, Elise. You know that, right? No matter what happens, I want you to remember that I love you." "I love you too," I said, confused by the intensity in her voice. "Everything's going to be beautiful. Your wedding is going to be perfect." She smiled sadly. "I hope so." The next morning, Cole called from Denver. The connection was bad and he sounded rushed. "How's the project going?" I asked. "Really well. The client is demanding, but I think we're making progress. I might need to extend the trip by a day." "That's fine. I miss you though." "Miss you too, Elle. I'll call you tonight." But he didn't call that night. Or the next. When he finally answered my texts, his responses were short. "Sorry, crazy busy, call you soon." Something felt wrong, but I pushed the feeling down. Cole was working hard. This was important for our future. I needed to be supportive, not suspicious. That's what I kept telling myself, anyway. Right up until the moment I found those photos that changed everything. Cole was supposed to return from Denver on Thursday evening, but he texted me that morning saying the client wanted to extend meetings through Friday. Another day, another excuse. I was starting to feel like a wife whose husband lived in airports and hotel conference rooms. "I'll make it up to you this weekend," his text read. "Maybe we can drive up to that little bed and breakfast in Ashford you've been wanting to try." I stared at the message, feeling a familiar knot form in my stomach. The same feeling I got whenever something felt just slightly off-key in a song I knew by heart. Friday afternoon, I was at the bridal shop with Philomena for her final dress fitting. She looked stunning in the ivory silk gown we'd chosen together, but she seemed distracted, almost melancholy. "You should be glowing," I told her, adjusting her veil. "3 days until you marry the love of your life." "Right," she said, staring at herself in the mirror. "The love of my life."
The seamstress finished the final hemline adjustments and left us alone in the fitting room. Philomena sat down heavily on the small bench, still wearing her wedding dress. "Elise, can I ask you something?" "Of course. If Cole wasn't traveling so much for work, do you think you'd be happier?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean, doesn't it bother you? All those business trips, all that time apart? Don't you ever wonder what he's really doing out there?" I felt defensive suddenly. "He's building our future. That's what he's doing. But how do you really know?" There was something in her tone that made me study her face more carefully. "Philomena, what are you trying to say?" She looked away quickly. "Nothing. I guess I'm thinking about trust, about how much we really know about the people we love." "Are you having doubts about Ander?" "No," she said too quickly. "Ander's perfect. Ander tells me everything." The way she emphasized everything felt loaded with meaning I couldn't decipher. "Then what's this about?" She stood up abruptly, smoothing down her dress. "I should get changed. We don't want to wrinkle anything before the big day." I helped her out of the dress, but the conversation left me unsettled. Philomena had been acting strange for weeks, and now these cryptic questions about Cole? It felt like she knew something I didn't. That evening, I sat in our empty house, trying to focus on wedding planning details. Philomena had asked me to pick up the wedding favors from the boutique downtown, and I needed to confirm the final head count with the caterer. But I couldn't concentrate. Her questions kept echoing in my mind. "Don't you ever wonder what he's really doing out there?" I found myself staring at Cole's study, at the desk where he kept his laptop and work files. I'd never snooped through his things. It felt like a violation of the trust we'd built together. But something was pulling me toward that desk, some instinct I'd been ignoring for too long. I poured myself a glass of wine, telling myself I was just going to organize his workspace as a nice surprise for when he got home. But when I opened his laptop to clear the desktop, I saw something that made my heart stop. His photo library was syncing with his phone, and there, in a folder labeled Denver Trip, were dozens of photos I'd never seen before. I clicked on the folder with trembling fingers, expecting to see conference rooms and construction sites. Instead, I saw Cole at what looked like a romantic restaurant, smiling across a candlelit table, but he wasn't alone. Sitting across from him, laughing at something he'd said, wearing a red dress I'd never seen before. I clicked to the next photo, Cole and Philomena walking hand in hand down a tree-lined street. Another photo, the two of them sharing a dessert, his hand covering hers on the table. Another, Philomena kissing Cole's cheek while he grinned at the camera. But the photo that made me physically sick was the last one. Cole and Philomena in what was clearly a hotel room, both in bathrobes, both laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, like they weren't destroying two other people's lives with every stolen moment. I stared at the screen until the images burned into my retinas. My husband of 6 years, my best friend since college,
The woman who was supposed to marry someone else in 3 days? The woman I was supposed to stand beside as her maid of honor.
Creating and bringing this narrative to life required countless hours of dedicated work. So if you're finding value in what we're sharing, please consider joining our community by subscribing. Your support truly makes all the difference. Now, let's continue with our story.
The wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered on the hardwood floor, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was Philomona's question from that afternoon. Don't you ever wonder what he's really doing out there? She knew. She knew I'd eventually find out, and she'd been trying to prepare me. Or maybe she'd been trying to gauge how much I suspected. I scrolled through the photos again, looking at the timestamps. Every single business trip Cole had taken in the past 4 months, Chicago, Atlanta, Denver, they'd all been lies, cover stories for weekend getaways with my best friend. My phone buzzed with a text from Cole. Flight delayed, won't be home until tomorrow morning. Love you. Another lie, another carefully crafted deception. But this time, I wasn't going to pretend I didn't see it. I sat on the floor of Cole's study, surrounded by broken glass and shattered illusions, staring at those photos until my eyes burned. Each image was a knife twist, but I couldn't stop looking. I needed to understand the scope of their betrayal. The timestamps told the whole story. Every business trip coincided with times when Philomona had been busy or visiting her sister or working late. The Chicago trip, where Cole said he was consulting on a hospital renovation, Philomona had canceled our dinner plans that same weekend, claiming she had food poisoning. The Atlanta trip for the shopping center project, Philomona had gone radio silent for 3 days, then returned with a mysterious tan and a story about a last-minute spa retreat. I screenshotted every photo, my hands shaking so badly I could barely operate the phone. The evidence was overwhelming, but I needed to be absolutely certain before I did anything irreversible. I opened Cole's text messages. Most of his recent conversations were work-related, but then I found a thread that made my stomach drop. The contact was labeled FH Catering, but I knew those initials, Philomona Harold. The messages went back months. FH Catering. Can't wait for Chicago. Ander thinks I'm visiting my cousin. Cole. Booked the suite at the Marriott, the one with the view you liked. FH Catering. What did you tell Elise? Cole. Hospital consultation. She bought it. She always does. FH Catering. Sometimes I feel guilty. Cole. Don't. We deserve this. You deserve to be happy. FH Catering. What about after the wedding? Cole. We'll figure it out. Maybe it's time to stop pretending.
I had to run to the bathroom. I barely made it before I was violently sick, my body rejecting the reality of what I'd discovered. When I returned to the study, I forced myself to keep reading. FH Catering. Elise asked me about your trips today. I think she's getting suspicious. Cole. What did you tell her? FH Catering. Nothing specific, but I might have planted some seeds. Maybe it's better if she finds out gradually. Cole. Not yet. Let's get through your wedding first. Then we can deal with the fallout. FH Catering. I hate lying to Ander. He's so excited about marrying me. Cole. You're doing what you have to do. We both are. The latest message was from 2 days ago. FH Catering. Denver was perfect. I love you. Cole. Love you too. See you at the altar on Sunday. FH Catering. As your wife's maid of honor, watching me marry someone else? The irony is killing me. Cole. Soon we won't have to pretend anymore. I screenshot everything, creating a digital trail of their betrayal. My best friend wasn't just sleeping with my husband, she was planning to marry someone else while carrying on this affair. And Cole wasn't just cheating, he was planning to leave me right after watching his mistress marry another man. The cruel choreography of it all was breathtaking. They'd been playing all of us, me, Ander, probably their families and friends too. The wedding I'd been helping plan, the dress I'd helped choose, the vows Philomena was going to recite in 3 days, it was all one massive lie.
I went to the kitchen and made myself a cup of tea with shaking hands, trying to process what I'd learned. My marriage was over. My best friendship was over. Everything I thought I knew about my life was a carefully constructed fiction. But as I sat there, in the quiet of my house, our house, the initial shock began to crystallize into something else. Not rage exactly, though that was certainly part of it. Not heartbreak, though my chest felt like it was caving in. It was something colder, more calculating. They thought they were so clever. They thought they could manipulate all of us, control the narrative, decide when and how to reveal their relationship. They thought they could use Anders' wedding as cover, probably planning to start their affair publicly sometime after the honeymoon, spinning some story about finding love in the aftermath of our respective divorces. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They underestimated me. I'd spent 6 years being the supportive wife, the understanding friend, the woman who didn't ask too many questions or make too many demands. I'd been so focused on being easy to love that I'd forgotten I was worth loving. I'd been so busy keeping everyone else comfortable that I'd forgotten I deserved comfort too. That version of me would have confronted them privately, probably crying, probably apologizing for not being enough. She would have handled this quietly, discreetly, without causing a scene. But that version of me died in the study that night, surrounded by broken glass and broken promises. The woman who emerged was someone different, someone who understood that sometimes the truth needs an audience to have real impact, someone who realized that private confrontations allow people to maintain their public facades and continue their lives with minimal consequences. I looked at my phone. 2 missed calls from Philomena and a text. "Hey, final wedding prep tomorrow. Are you free to help with last-minute details?" I typed back, "Of course. Wouldn't miss it for the world." If they wanted to play games, I'd play too. But I'd be playing to win. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at my kitchen table with Cole's laptop, printing every photo, every text message, every piece of evidence. By dawn, I had a manila folder thick with documentation of their 4-month affair. Cole's flight wasn't due to arrive until noon, which gave me time to think, to plan, to decide exactly how I was going to handle this. The old Elise would have confronted Cole the moment he walked through the door. She would have thrown the photos at him, demanded explanations, probably ended up apologizing for snooping through his things. The old Elise would have called Philomena, crying, asking how she could do this to our friendship. But the old Elise was naive. She believed that people were fundamentally good, that relationships were built on mutual respect, and the people who claimed to love you actually meant it. This new version of me understood something different. People like Cole and Philomena didn't respond to tears or emotional appeals. They responded to consequences, and consequences required strategy. I made myself breakfast and tried to think clearly. Philomena's wedding was tomorrow. Today is Saturday. The rehearsal dinner is tonight at 7. Cole would come home, probably with some small gift, and a story about Denver, expecting me to smile and welcome him back with open arms. But first, I had a phone call to make. I found Anders Meister's number in my contacts, and stared at it for a long time. He was a good man, an architect who worked for a sustainable design firm, someone who coached Little League on weekends and brought Philomena flowers just because it was Tuesday. He deserved to know what kind of woman he was about to marry. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. "Elise? Hey, what's up? Isn't today your final maid of honor duties day?" "Elise, I need to see you. It's about Philomena." "Anders, is everything okay? Is she having cold feet?" "Elise, can you meet me at Harbor Park, the bench by the fountain? It's important." "Anders, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Elise, just meet me there in an hour. And Anders, come alone." I hung up before he could ask more questions. Then I gathered copies of the most damning photos and texts, put them in a separate envelope, and drove to the park. Harbor Park was where Cole had proposed to me 7 years ago. It felt fitting that it would be the place where I'd start unraveling the lies that had become my life. Ander was already waiting when I arrived, sitting on our designated bench, looking worried. He stood up when he saw me approaching, and I could see the concern in his eyes. "Elise, what's going on? You look terrible?" "Yeah, I imagine I do." I sat down beside him, the envelope in my lap feeling heavier than it should. "Ander, what I'm about to show you is going to change everything. Your wedding is tomorrow, and I know this timing is awful, but you deserve to know the truth." "Truth about what?" I handed him the envelope. "About who you're really marrying." He opened it slowly, and I watched his face change as he looked at the first photo. Cole and Philomena at dinner in Chicago, her hand on his cheek, both of them looking at each other like they were the only two people in the world. "I don't understand," he said quietly. "Is this your fiancé and my husband? 4 months of affair, disguised as business trips." I kept my voice steady, factual. "There are more photos and text messages. They've been planning this whole thing, Ander. They were going to let you marry her, probably wait a few months, then announce their relationship publicly after our respective divorces." He flipped through the photos in silence, his face growing paler with each image. When he got to the text messages, I saw his hands start to shake. "She was going to marry me tomorrow," he whispered. "She was going to say vows, exchange rings, promise to love me forever, all while planning to leave me for your husband." "Yes. How long have you known?" "I found out last night. I've been trying to figure out how to handle this, and I realized you had a right to know before you made a commitment you can't take back." Ander stared at the photos for a long time. Then he looked at me, and I saw something change in his expression. Not just hurt, anger, real, righteous anger. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I'm not sure yet. What are you going to do?" He was quiet for several minutes, just staring at the evidence of his fiancée's betrayal. Finally, he spoke. "The rehearsal dinner is tonight. All our families will be there. Everyone we love, everyone who's invested in this wedding." "Yes. And tomorrow, 200 people are going to watch me stand at an altar while a woman who's been lying to me for months promises to love and honor me?" I nodded. "She thinks she's so smart," he said. "They both think they're so clever, manipulating everyone, controlling the situation. They probably think I'll find out eventually and just quietly divorce her, that you'll find out and just quietly divorce Cole. No fuss, no drama, no real consequences for what they've done. Probably." He looked at me then, and I saw a resolve in his eyes that matched what I was feeling. "What if we didn't give them that luxury?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we made sure their lies had consequences? What if we made sure everyone knew exactly what kind of people they really are?" I studied his face. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking they want a wedding tomorrow. Fine, let's give them a wedding they'll never forget." For the first time since I'd found those photos, I smiled. A real smile. "Tell me what you have in mind." Ander's plan was brilliant in its simplicity. We would attend the rehearsal dinner tonight as if nothing had happened. We'd smile, laugh, toast to the happy couple, play our roles perfectly. Cole and Philomena would think they'd gotten away with their deception for another night. But tomorrow, at the altar, in front of 200 guests, Ander would deliver the truth in the most public way possible. When the priest asks if I take Philomena to be my wife, Ander said, his voice steady and cold, "I'm going to say I don't. And then I'm going to tell everyone exactly why. They'll try to stop you, try to get you off that altar before you can finish. Let them try. The damage will be done. Everyone will know that something serious enough happened to make a groom refuse to marry his bride at the altar. They'll want answers." I felt a surge of admiration for this man who was choosing truth over comfort, justice over quiet dignity. "What do you need from me? Just act normal tonight. Don't let them suspect anything. Tomorrow, I'll handle Philomena. But Cole, that's your choice. You can confront him however you want, whenever you want." We sat in that park for another hour, refining the plan, anticipating their reactions, preparing for the chaos that would follow. By the time we parted ways, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months: hope. Cole arrived home at 2 o'clock with a bouquet of roses and a story about delayed flights. He kissed my cheek and handed me a small wrapped box. "Just a little something from Denver," he said, with that smile that used to make my heart flutter. Inside was a silver bracelet. Pretty, expensive, probably purchased at the airport while texting his mistress. I slipped it on and thanked him with what I hoped looked like genuine appreciation. "How was the project?" I asked, settling into my role. "Challenging, but good. The client is demanding, but I think we impressed them." He was such a smooth liar, so practiced at deception. "How is everything here? How's Philomena feeling about tomorrow?" "Nervous, but excited. The rehearsal dinner is at 7. We should probably start getting ready soon." Right, her big day. There was something in his tone, a smugness that made my skin crawl. He was probably thinking about how he'd be watching his lover marry another man, knowing that soon she'd be his. I excused myself to shower and get ready, and in the privacy of our bathroom, I allowed myself 5 minutes to grieve. Not just for my marriage, but for the version of myself who had trusted so completely. She deserved those 5 minutes of tears. Then I dried my eyes, applied my makeup, and put on a black dress that made me feel powerful. Tonight, I would be the perfect wife and the perfect maid of honor. I would smile at Philomena, laugh at Cole's jokes, and toast to their happiness. Tomorrow, everything would change. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Greystone Manor, an elegant venue with chandeliers and garden views. Philomena looked radiant in a flowing blue dress, accepting congratulations and well wishes from family and friends. Cole worked the room like the charming man everyone believed him to be. I watched them carefully throughout the evening. They were good at hiding their connection in public. No lingering glances, no secret touches. But I caught small moments. Cole refilling Philomena's wine glass without being asked, Philomena laughing just a little too hard at his stories during the toasts. Ander was magnificent. He gave a speech about love and commitment that had several people in tears, including Philomena. He kissed her cheek when he finished, and I saw her eyes glisten with what might have been guilt. If only she knew what was coming. "To my beautiful bride," Ander said, raising his glass. "Tomorrow can't come soon enough." Philomena blushed and squeezed his hand. "I love you so much." "I love you too," he replied, and I was the only one who heard the underlying steel in his voice. The evening ended with hugs and excitement about tomorrow's ceremony. As we said our goodbyes, Philomena pulled me aside. "Thank you for everything, Elise. Having you as my maid of honor means the world to me." I hugged her tightly. Wouldn't miss it for anything. Tomorrow was going to be a day none of us would ever forget. Sunday morning arrived with picture-perfect weather. Bright sunshine, gentle breeze, exactly the kind of day Philomena had dreamed of for her wedding. I helped her get ready in the bridal suite at St. Matthew's Cathedral, curling her hair, adjusting her veil, playing the role of devoted maid of honor one last time. "I'm so nervous," she said, staring at herself in the mirror. "What if something goes wrong?" "Nothing will go wrong," I assured her, applying her lipstick with steady hands. "Today is going to be exactly what you deserve." She smiled at me in the mirror. "You're the best friend anyone could ask for." The irony was almost too much to bear. Cole arrived with the other groomsmen, looking handsome in his navy suit. He caught my eye through the doorway and winked, probably thinking about how he'd be watching his mistress get married while his unsuspecting wife stood by her side. At exactly 2 o'clock, the processional music began. I walked down the aisle first, carrying a bouquet of white roses, nodding at the faces I'd known for years. Friends from college, coworkers, family members who had no idea they were about to witness the most dramatic wedding in their lives. Philomena appeared at the back of the church on her father's arm, absolutely stunning in her ivory silk gown. 200 guests rose to their feet, cameras flashed, and she began her walk toward what she thought would be the happiest moment of her life. I watched Anders' face as she approached. He stood perfectly still, his expression unreadable, the picture of a composed groom. Only I could see the steel in his eyes. Philomena reached the altar. Her father kissed her cheek and placed her hand in Anders', and the ceremony began. Father Mackenzie opened with traditional words about love and commitment, the very concepts that Cole and Philomena had been systematically destroying for months. They exchanged vows that Philomena had written herself, beautiful words about trust and fidelity that made several guests tear up. Ander repeated his vows with perfect composure, promising to love and honor her for the rest of his life. But I knew what was coming. Father Mackenzie turned to Ander with the traditional question: "Do you, Ander James Meister, take Philomena Rose Harold to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or for worse, for as long as you both shall live?" The church fell silent. This was the moment everyone was waiting for, the moment that would seal their union. Ander looked directly at Philomena, his voice clear and strong enough for everyone to hear. "I don't." The gasp that went through the church was audible. Philomena's face went white, her bouquet trembling in her hands. "I'm sorry. What?" Father Mackenzie asked, clearly confused. "I said I don't," Ander repeated, his voice even stronger now. "I don't take this woman to be my wife, because I know exactly what kind of woman she really is." Philomena tried to grab his arm. "Ander, what are you doing?" But he stepped back, addressing the entire congregation now. 4 months ago, Philomena began an affair with Cole Carrington. He pointed directly at Cole, who had gone pale in the front row. A married man. While she was planning this wedding with me, while she was picking out flowers and tasting cakes and saying she couldn't wait to be my wife, she was sneaking away on fake business trips to hotel rooms with another woman's husband. The church erupted. Gasps, whispers, people turning in their seats to stare at Cole, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Ander, stop," Philomena pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I have photos," Ander continued, pulling an envelope from his jacket. "Text messages. 4 months of evidence that the woman standing here in white has been living a complete lie." Philomena's mother stood up in the front row. "This is ridiculous! Ander, you're having some kind of breakdown." "Ask her," Ander said simply. "Ask Philomena if any of what I just said is a lie." All eyes turned to the bride. She stood there, in her beautiful dress, veil askew, makeup running, unable to speak. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Finally, she whispered, "Ander, I can explain."
"There it is," he said. "That's all the confirmation anyone needs." The chaos that followed was immediate and overwhelming. Philomena's bridesmaids rushed toward her, Cole tried to slip toward the side exit, and guests erupted in shocked conversations. But Ander wasn't finished. "Before anyone tries to defend her or make excuses," he said, his voice cutting through the noise, "let me be very clear about what happened here. This woman accepted my proposal knowing she was in love with someone else. She planned this entire wedding as a lie. She was prepared to say vows to me while secretly planning to leave me for her lover." Philomena finally found her voice, though it came out as a desperate sob. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Ander interrupted. "I understand that you're a liar. I understand that you manipulated me, your families, everyone in this room. And I understand that you thought I was stupid enough to never find out."
That's when Philomena's composure completely cracked, and the woman I thought I knew disappeared entirely. "You self-righteous bastard," she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "You think you're so perfect? You want to humiliate me in front of everyone? Fine. Yes, I'm in love with Cole. Yes, we've been together for months. And you know what? He's everything you're not. Passionate, successful, exciting. You're boring, Ander. You're safe and predictable and boring." The church gasped again, but she wasn't done. "And you," she whirled around to face me, her eyes blazing with fury, standing there looking so innocent, so betrayed. "You want to know why Cole chose me? Because you're pathetic, Elise. You're a doormat who never challenged him, never excited him. I gave him what you couldn't, real passion, real love." Cole finally tried to intervene. "Philomena, stop. No," she shrieked. "I'm done pretending. I'm done acting like I'm sorry. Elise, your marriage has been dead for years. Cole told me himself. You're like roommates, not lovers. You bore him to tears." The cruelty in her voice, the venom, was breathtaking. This wasn't the woman who had been my best friend for over a decade. This was someone I'd never seen before. Someone who had been hiding behind a mask of sweetness and loyalty. But instead of crumbling, instead of running from the church in tears, I felt something powerful settle over me. This was my moment. I stepped forward, my voice calm and clear. "You're right about one thing, Philomena. I was pathetic. I was a doormat. I spent years making excuses for people who didn't deserve my loyalty." I looked directly at her, then at Cole, but not anymore. I reached into my purse and pulled out my own envelope, the one containing copies of all their text messages, printed in clear black and white. Since we're sharing truths today, let me share some of my own. I held up the papers so everyone could see. 4 months of text messages between my husband and my best friend, planning their affair, laughing about how easy it was to lie to us, discussing how they'd handle the fallout after Philomena's wedding. I began reading directly from the messages, my voice steady and strong. Cole to Philomena. She bought the hospital consultation story. She always does. Philomena to Cole. Sometimes I feel guilty. Cole's response, "Don't. We deserve this. You deserve to be happy." Philomena tried to grab the papers from my hands, but I stepped back. "And my personal favorite," I continued, "Philomena to Cole. I hate lying to Ander. He's so excited about marrying me." Cole's response, "You're doing what you have to do. We both are." The church was dead silent now, everyone hanging on every word. "So yes, Philomena, you're right. I was boring. I was trusting. I believed that the people who claimed to love me actually meant it. But I've learned something important these past few days. The problem was never that I was boring. The problem was that I was trying to be loved by people who weren't capable of real love." I turned to Cole, who looked like he wanted to disappear entirely. "Cole, our marriage is over. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow." Then I faced Philomena one last time. "And you can have him. You deserve each other." I walked out of that church with my head held high, leaving behind a sanctuary in chaos. Behind me, I could hear Philomena's mother crying, Ander calmly explaining to Father Mackenzie that there would be no wedding, and Cole trying to make excuses to anyone who would listen. But I didn't look back, not once. The months that followed were the hardest and most liberating of my life. The divorce was swift. Cole didn't contest anything, probably hoping to minimize the public embarrassment. He lost the house, half his business assets, and most of his friends. Word of what happened at the wedding spread quickly through our social circle, and most people weren't sympathetic to a man who would cheat on his wife with her best friend. Philomena tried calling me once, about 2 weeks after the wedding disaster. I let it go to voicemail. "Elise, please, I know you hate me, but I need you to understand. I never meant for it to happen. I fell in love, and I didn't know how to handle it. Cole and we're together now, and we're happy, but I miss you. I miss my friend. Can we please talk?" I deleted the message without listening to it twice. There was nothing she could say that would matter anymore. Cole and Philomena lasted exactly 3 months. Apparently, when your entire relationship is built on sneaking around and betraying other people, there's not much left when you don't have to hide anymore. I heard through mutual friends that they fought constantly, each accusing the other of not being worth the destruction they'd caused. Cole tried to come back once, showing up at my apartment with flowers and apologies. I watched from my window as he knocked on the door I'd changed the locks to, and I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, not even satisfaction. Just nothing. He was a stranger to me now, someone I used to know in a different life. Ander and I stayed in touch. He handled everything with such dignity that I found myself genuinely admiring him. He donated all the wedding gifts to charity, took the honeymoon trip to Italy by himself, and threw himself into his work. 6 months later, he started dating a colleague, a kind, genuine woman who appreciated his steady, loyal heart. "You know what I learned from all this?" he told me over coffee one afternoon. "The right person doesn't make you feel boring. The right person makes you feel like the most interesting version of yourself." As for me, I discovered something wonderful. I actually enjoyed my own company. For the first time in years, I could make decisions without considering how they'd affect someone else's mood or plans. I could eat what I wanted, watch what I wanted, travel where I wanted. I took that trip to Portugal I'd always dreamed about. I stood on those cliffs overlooking the Atlantic Ocean, feeling the wind in my hair and the sun on my face, and I realized something profound. I wasn't just surviving this chapter of my life, I was writing it. The photo I posted from that trip went viral, not because of the story behind it, but because there was something in my expression that resonated with thousands of women. Joy. Real, authentic, unapologetic joy. I started getting messages from strangers, women who were going through their own betrayals, their own divorces, their own moments of choosing themselves over people who didn't value them. Their stories were all different, but the message was the same. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. I never remarried, but I never felt lonely either. I built a life filled with genuine friendships, meaningful work, and adventures I'd never have taken when I was busy trying to be the perfect wife to an imperfect husband. 3 years later, I ran into Cole at a grocery store. He looked older, tired, like life hadn't been particularly kind to him. He started to approach me, probably planning some awkward conversation, but I simply smiled politely and walked past him toward the checkout line. I had nothing to say to him, and more importantly, I didn't need to hear anything from him. That chapter was closed. As I loaded my groceries into my car, I thought about that woman who had stood in her husband's study 3 years ago, staring at photos that shattered her world. She thought she was losing everything that mattered. She had no idea she was actually finding herself.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.